Francesco Rizzuto, who is a professor of law at UCFB, University of East London. Francesco, I was just saving the judgment for you to explain it to us, because if this is about Italy sending asylum seekers to Albania, the ECJ has ruled that the EU may fast-track asylum rejections for nationals of safe countries. But a rejection isn't the same as sending someone to have their asylum claim processed in a third country. So what's going on with this judgment?
Good morning. If you remember a few months ago when we talked about this, I said that the Italians were actually being rather clever about the way they were proposing to deal with arrivals, asylum seekers, migrants essentially, who were seeking asylum in Italy, and that this was a clever political ploy to be able to claim that they weren't landing on the on Italian soil, and that they would process them in Albania. Well, actually, they're not processing them in Albania. Albania has now become a center where they're sending peoples whose applications have been rejected. What is interesting, what is interesting about this ruling, by the way, and it follows the opinion of the Advocate General of the court. The Advocate General basically suggests to the court how it should answer questions asked by national courts. And actually, what the court is saying is that the rules, EU law, does not preclude the kind of thing that Italy is doing, as long as the court is satisfied that there is a law in place that designates a country as a safe third country. And the court, the Advocate General and the court has actually followed this ruling, his opinion, that essentially even third countries of origin, and this was the claim in this case, Bangladesh, that even in the case of a country that is designated, how can I put it, safe generally, there can be exceptions for people who one can't guarantee protection in those states. So if you like, you can grant asylum to people who are persecuted because of their sexuality, to put it bluntly for you. So this ruling, by the way, is very important because it tends to align with the current proposal, the current regulation going through the European institutions, the European Parliament and the Council. And I think that will get through, which essentially legitimates, as long as it's consistent with international law, the idea of actually sending asylum seekers or migrants before they're processed to determine whether they're asylum seekers or not to safe third countries, as long as the way in which these safe third countries is actually established in law and is transparent, at least to a judge. As long as that's the case, then it's permissible. So if you like, the bits of the jigsaw or the ducks, let me put it that way, are all now aligning that as long as European states or member states of the European Union follow international law, then there is no problem in actually, if you like, setting up hubs outside the European Union to do that, as long as those states are, if you like, are consistent with the rules of European fundamental rights.
Okay, well, who knows if we're heading towards the controversial Australian system of offshoring asylum seekers. Francesco, give us an idea about what this means for numbers. Do you foresee a reduction in migrant and asylum seekers arriving in the EU? And do you see an increase in the number of rejections and asylum seekers being sent by the EU to third countries?
Whether this acts as a deterrent or not is impossible to answer. My hunch is that it won't. What will act as, if you like, a brake will be that where these people are coming from either become wealthier or less conflict-ridden. I think that that's important. And, of course, that we can support those countries, i.e. Europe can support those countries in putting in place the educational and economic opportunities for people not to want to come to Europe. So I think that that's, this is not necessarily going to deter people. As to numbers, well, I don't, the questions are connected. I do not actually believe that it's impossible to identify one single factor that will stop population flows. As I say, numbers appear to have gone down over the last 12 months, though, of course, in the country I'm residing in, they were all in a panic yesterday that 25,000 people have crossed the English Channel so far this year. So it's a question of, factors that I think are beyond our direct control that determines the numbers coming. The things like weather, even crazy, and obviously how those states that we are hoping will act, particularly in North Africa, will act as a frontier for, let's call it Fortress Europe, or what is becoming Fortress Europe, can actually stop them. And we see that this is, problematic in a place like Libya, that throughout the European Union, well, actually the commissioner and his officials threw them out, including the Italian interior minister, threw them out, declaring them as persona non grata. So we're caught in this very, very complex and difficult game in actually trying to control population flows to Europe that is extremely difficult. Though again, let me say, and I hope I'm not taking too much of your time, the Italians have actually been quite clever, because the Italians have played a hard line, but actually they have, if you like, the pennies dropped for the far right, or supposedly far right Italian government, that we actually need migrants. So on the one hand, they've been hard and have pushed, the Albanian solution, and actually other states, including Denmark, for example, have pushed for adopting stringent approaches to the question of migration. But at the same time, they've truly established legal ways into Italy, because in Italy there's a shortage of around about 300,000, 400,000 members of the workforce. So if you like, we've legalized many migrants coming in.
Francesco, we always appreciate the analysis. We need you to understand these legal issues, and you're the expert. Take care.